Have you ever been blamed for something you never did, while the real guilty person stood beside you pretending to be the victim? That is exactly what happened to me. For 6 years, I was known as the woman who could never give her husband a child. My ex-husband, his mother, and even my closest friend built an entire story around my supposed failure. Everyone believed I was broken. Everyone except the truth. The day my former mother-in-law stood outside the maternity ward, proudly celebrating the grandson she believed proved I had been the problem all along. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Leaving you was the best decision my son ever made." I smiled, asked one simple question, and quietly walked away. Within weeks, one sealed medical file would destroy every lie they had spent years protecting. My name is Madison Carter, and this is the story of how the people who ruined my life became victims of their own deception. I worked as an emergency physician where panic was never an option. Every day I treated patients fighting for their lives, so staying calm became second nature. Unfortunately, I carried that same silence into my marriage. When Ethan and I struggled to have children, I suggested we both undergo medical testing. I completed every examination, and every result showed I was perfectly healthy. Ethan refused every appointment and insisted we simply needed more time. Before long, he quietly began telling people that I was the reason we could never start a family. His mother believed every word. Soon the gossip spread through church gatherings, neighborhood dinners, and family events. Everywhere I went, people treated me like a woman who had failed her husband. The hardest part was watching my best friend Lauren comfort me while secretly growing closer to Ethan. She listened to my fears, hugged me when I cried, and promised everything would be okay. I never imagined she was helping destroy my marriage behind my back. One evening, I came home from a long hospital shift and found divorce papers waiting on the kitchen counter. Ethan had already packed his belongings and moved into Lauren's apartment. Just a few months later, they announced they were expecting a baby together. Overnight, the entire town celebrated their perfect new family, while I became the woman who supposedly could never give her husband what he wanted. I stayed quiet because I believed the truth would eventually reveal itself. Instead, the lies followed me into my career. When I applied for the leadership position at my hospital, people questioned my judgment because of the rumors surrounding my divorce. Years of dedication disappeared because strangers believed gossip instead of facts. That was the day I realized silence was protecting everyone except me. I hired an attorney named Rachel. She listened carefully before explaining something that changed everything. If Ethan wanted to publicly claim I was infertile, then sooner or later he would have to prove it. His lawyers confidently argued in court that every statement about me was completely true. They thought they had already won. What they did not realize was that their own argument opened the door to Ethan's medical history. The judge approved access to the records. A few days later, Rachel asked me to come to her office. The moment I saw her face, I knew my life was about to change forever. 7 years before our divorce, Ethan had secretly visited a fertility clinic. His diagnosis left no room for doubt. He was medically infertile. He had known the truth the entire time. For years, he had watched people blame me while protecting his own pride. His mother repeated the lie because she trusted him. My best friend helped keep the secret because exposing it would destroy everything they had built together. As I sat there trying to process the truth, another thought hit me harder than anything else. If Ethan had been infertile for all those years, then whose baby was Lauren carrying? Suddenly, every strange moment made sense. Her desperate message asking me to stop the lawsuit. Her nervous behavior whenever the case was mentioned. The fear in her eyes every time someone talked about medical records. She had never been afraid of losing the lawsuit. She was terrified of losing the lie. Everything finally came. Together, inside the courtroom, hospital board members sat beside. Church friends who had believed the rumors for years. Ethan stared at the table while his mother waited confidently for the judge to confirm everything she had spent years telling people. Rachel calmly presented the evidence. She proved that Ethan owned medical records showed he had known about his infertility years before our marriage ended. Then she explained how he had allowed everyone to believe I was the problem while he quietly protected himself. The room became completely silent. Nobody looked at me anymore. Every eye turned toward Ethan. His mother slowly realized she had spent years humiliating an innocent woman while defending a lie created by her own son. Then I stood up. I looked directly at the woman who had spent years calling me broken and spoke as calmly as I ever had inside an emergency. Room, you were right about one thing. Someone in this marriage could never have children. Was never me. No shouting followed, no dramatic argument. The truth did everything on its own. Within weeks, the hospital restored my reputation and offered me the leadership position I had earned years earlier. Ethan quietly left town after the truth spread faster than the rumors ever had. Lauren was forced to answer questions she could know longer avoid when another man stepped forward, believing her child was actually his. People often ask whether I felt satisfied watching everything fall apart. The answer is no. I felt free. For years, I carried shame that never belonged to me because I believed staying silent made me strong. What I finally learned is that silence only becomes noble when it protects peace. The moment it starts protecting lies, it becomes another prison. The truth never needed me to scream. It never needed revenge. It simply waited until the right people were forced to face it. I lost a marriage, a friendship, and years of happiness because of one carefully protected lie. But in the end, I got back something far more valuable than any of those things. I got my name. I got my dignity. Most importantly, I got my peace, and once you stop carrying someone else's shame, there is nothing more powerful than quietly walking away, knowing the truth finally speaks for itself.